In our last documentary, we turned our attention to the WWE Ring Boy scandal. In that video, we highlighted an interview that took place on Monty and the Pharoh's podcast with Gerard Millette, the last ring boy who worked side by side with Mel Phillips for years. He stated during that discussion that not only did he never experience what other ring boys said they did, but he also never saw any behavior amounting to SA, and believes that Mel Phillips, Terry Garvin, and Pat Patterson are innocent parties. He also has some very strong opinions on the accounts of the late Tom Cole and claims to have information that contradicts things that have been reported to date. Tonight, we are grateful to be able to sit down with Gerard and speak with him on the subject. We are aware that there are a lot of strong opinions and feelings on both sides of this issue. So before we begin, we want to make it perfectly clear that we are here to listen to Gerard, to hear his side, and to learn why he is so certain these men were innocent. It takes a lot of courage to be outspoken on such a volatile issue, especially when you are on the unpopular side. We ask that our viewers keep this in mind when engaging in the chat and comment section. Gerard deserves to express his opinions, present his points, and be treated with respect. And with that, we welcome Gerard Millette.
Welcome, Gerard, and I appreciate your time. Okay, I really do. Just to throw it out there, man had a Red Sox hat on earlier, and now he has a Celtics hat.
They won the championship this year.
Gerard, welcome. And I want to make it very clear. It takes a lot of courage for you to come on and sit down and discuss this with anybody. You know, when we did the original piece of content and saw you on Monty and the Pharoh, we put out that video, and you messaged us. You didn't hesitate. And when we asked if you'd like to come on, you were like, yeah, absolutely. I want everybody to know that does take a lot of courage. We had a little bit of a discussion at the beginning. I don't want to step on Monty and the Pharoh's toes. The link to that podcast will be in the description for anybody who wants to read that or see that. I do just want to ask you some questions, and we'll go from there. As you stated that you felt comfortable with that. We good with that?
That's fine.
Okay. So first and foremost, and these questions were given by my lovely wife. She is the brains behind the operation. I'm just a guy who is the interviewer.
All smart husbands say that.
Absolutely. First question is, what was the tipping point that made you decide to come forward earlier this year and tell your story to Monty and the Pharoh and defend Mel Phillips?
I saw too many podcasts going after him, Terry Garvin and Pat Patterson, and none of those three had anybody coming forward, if you notice, for them or for the most part against them, other than ex-disgruntled wrestlers. And other than the ex-disgruntled wrestlers, nobody can come forward to say, hey, these guys weren't all that bad. Now, by talking with other members of ex-WWE employees that I still know, Pat was known as a ribber. And if ribbing becomes illegal, you might as well take your fun away from, all kinds of sports and stuff like that. I play in an adult baseball league. I'm 51 years old. I still play baseball. We rib each other in the dugouts, okay? We rib each other on the fields. It's part of doing, okay? Terry, same thing. The thing a lot of people don't understand about Terry, he was still a family man. I don't know how old his kids are right now. They probably be in their early 40s. Okay. Mel Phillips, as far as I know, his mother's still alive. Sisters, brothers, nephews, nieces. So to portray these people as not as having families, they had families. And, when you go, maybe not everybody's online to look at this, but maybe they are looking at this and saying, hey, you're talking about my brother, but they don't want to get involved. because their family members have passed away, and why dig up stuff that died with their family members? And I just got sick and tired of them having to go through, get dragged through the mud when they're already dead. You can't convict dead men. They weren't convicted they weren't convicted 32 years ago. They weren't tried. So, just let them die in peace. You want to have a show, you want to talk, fine. Have your show, have your talk. Don't keep digging up don't keep digging up dead bodies. That's it.
And I respect your opinion there. For those who are not familiar with how you became involved with WWE, then the WWF, and working with Mel Phillips, tell us how it all started.
February 4th, 1987, Low Memorial Auditorium. Coco Beware had 4 bags because he had Frankie. There was, I want to say, 10 kids around his car. I was the only one who offered to help him actually bring the bags into the building. I get up to the back door. He's there. He looked at Mel Phillips because Mel was working the door at the time. He goes, "Hey, can you help me bring my bags downstairs?" Yep. I get downstairs. He goes, "Can the kids stay in the building?" Sure. I went up and sat on the stage with Mel and the 2 ring crew guys at the time. And at the end of the night, I helped break down, and I went home. And he 3 days later, there was a show at the Boston Garden. He told me, "Hey, if you want to come down, come on down." I went down, and we just met up, and that was it. He took my phone number from there, and that was it.
So that the garden show was coming up, and he got your number after you had helped Coco Beware.
Yeah. So when I went on stage and stuff like that, took my number down. We got a show coming up in Boston. This is the time I'll be in town. Just you want to take? I said, okay, I can take the train down, because back in those days, it could still be like that today. Trains from Lowell to Boston ran every odd hour. So I was like, okay, tell me what time you need me to be down, and then I'll meet you at the Garden. I went down, met him at the Garden.
And I think that's to give cadence to who you are as a person, who you were back then as well. You're a fan, like as a kid, right? You were, and that's one of the things that really touched me when I was listening to the Monty and the Pharoh thing. You were there to see Hulk Hogan. You were there to see. You're a wrestling fan. You were there to be a fan, and you were lucky enough that Coco Beware asked you the question. You said, "Yeah, hell yeah, I'll happily move your bags." So and
it's funny that he was still working there when I started working. So I mean, hey, and I was able to thank him 5 years later, or 4 years later.
In the years between your introduction to Mel and going to work for the WWE, did you only attend local shows with Mel, or did you also attend shows in other cities?
I basically, anything in New England I would go to. Up until the weekend of my 17th birthday, I got on a plane and we went down to Philadelphia, because it was a weekend, so I didn't have school. We went down to Philadelphia, turned right back around, came up to Portland, Maine. So Saturday was Philly. Portland, Maine was on Sunday. After Portland, Maine, I came back home so I could go to school. And that was my 17th birthday weekend present.
Seems like you were doing something that you had always wanted to do. You were a lifelong fan, and you were literally getting to go behind the scenes. Is that?
I was in awe of, learning the business and stuff like that, getting behind, seeing what was being done. And in this time, like I've said before, at this time, I still thought wrestling was on the up and up. I was very green to the business. And then the more I found out, hey, it was still enjoyable to me. The shine didn't shine off. Put it this way, to this day, the shine hasn't shined off, because I still enjoy the athletic aspect of it. I still enjoy the whole performance of it. And when you get behind the scenes of it and you learn the inner workings of it, if you don't enjoy it, you have no business being there. It's a drug without taking drugs.
I can understand that. So we're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It's the world famous Sportatorium, and there are photos of me as a child on the shoulder of Kevin Von Erich with gentleman Chris Adams standing next to him. And I looked at the back of those as a kid, and my oldest memories that I have are literally walking into that building as a child with my dad. I get it. The feel, that smell. I can still, to this day, it's been almost 40 years, I can still smell that dry, stale sweat smell, and watching these giant titans of men and what I thought was real at the time. And to this day, even though with everything we've uncovered, everything we've done in videos, damn it, I'm still a fan at heart. I'm still a fucking mark.
Up here in the Boston area, you would have WCCW on from 9 to 10 or 10 to 11. And then right after that, you would have the WWF, their show. And there was a lot of weeks you wanted to watch WCCW over WWF at that time. And because the head-to-head was like watching WCW versus WWF. Okay. And once Kerry left, once Flair left to go to more mainstay WCW and Kerry came over, you could see the writing on the wall for WCW to start fade away, especially with the Gino Hernandez, the Chris Adams, and all that passing away. And all those guys are passing.
That Gino Hernandez, that is a heartbreaker because he was such an amazing talent. The guy was so great. He could have shined in this era. You could have put Gino Hernandez in any fucking era because he was such a good heel.
Dom Mysterio.
Yes. Oh God. Yes. I mean, and I watched him today in Berlin, and he was Dom Mysterio, but I think he was better. He had better looking, could talk better, and in ring was amazing. I mean, the guy was.
But as a heel, Dom Mysterio, he was Dom Mysterio to where, a cross between Dom Mysterio and Rick the Model Martel.
Oh yes, perfect.
There you go. The heel with the looks.
Yes. And I love this because it shows that you're still here. You're still part of the fandom. You still want it, and I love that. During that time, though, I want to say one thing. You are looking at the guy who refereed Kurt Angle's very first match. Don't totally my emotions, all right?
I kid you not.
I believe you.
Salem State College in Salem, Massachusetts against Dr. Tom Pritchard. I am the guy.
So it's a fact for y'all to go back and look up. During all that time, though, did you see or interact with any other ring boys?
Yes. Tom Cole.
Y'all had interactions?
Yes.
Can you tell me about any of that?
Before I got full-time out of high school, I met him, I think I want to say on 2 occasions. The first time I met him, I want to say, was in New York somewhere. I can't remember the town or the date. But the second time I met him was at Madison Square Garden, November 30th, 1991, when he came to the arena with basically a blackmail offer from Mel Phillips and stood at the security shack. Now, for anybody who knows Madison Square Garden, you walk across the street, you go to security, you take an elevator upstairs. He was at the security desk waiting for Mel Phillips and myself because we came in from Philadelphia because we had an afternoon show in Philly. And he told Mel, give me back my job or wait till you see what I do. And I looked at him and said, go screw yourself. I'm being nice. And that was it. We went upstairs and I said, do you think he's too dumb to carry anything out? And sure, lo and behold, 3 months later, we were up in Portland, Maine. He gets the phone call. Big man wants to see you tomorrow. And he dropped me off at home out of Maine because we were supposed to go somewhere else. I wasn't supposed to go home. He goes and called me up. He said, I'm gone. I'm like, what do you mean you're gone? He said, I'm gone. I was forced to resign today. And it was because of Tom. Now, I left voluntarily because in my own way back then, I was very loyal to my bosses. I was very loyal to Mel, Terry, and Pat because I didn't think, and I think if they could do that to these guys, I'm 19. I didn't want to have to deal with none of this crap that was going on because, the media, if the media had gotten to me, I'm 19 years old at the time, they were going to probably try and wring me through the mud. Hey, you're at this age, blah, 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 blah. So I didn't want to deal with none of that. So I just said, it's better for me just to walk away. In hindsight, I wish I had stayed on just to look at this guy in his face and call him a liar. And that would have been too much for him Because then he probably would have turned around, said, this guy's harassing me. And, you know, at 19 years old, I didn't need to do it in my life. I left there. I was able to get unemployment, went to go do another job with my brother-in-law. And I've been with the same company now for 29 years, basically since I left WWE. So it turned out for the best for me. I got a lot of people I still know from WWE who all look at me in the same thing and said, wish we could have got the same gig that you had because of what happened with COVID. A lot of them got released. And they said, you got a job. Heck, you're in a first hired, last fired job because I'm a union member. I have a union job. And these guys, some of those guys who were the first hired were the first fired during COVID. But when it comes to Tom, he was a smug, arrogant bastard. He wanted to be one of the boys more than he wanted to be what he was there for, a ring crew member. So when they call them ring boys, they were actually ring crew. He was 19, so he wasn't a boy. Okay? Or 20, however old he was. But to keep calling them ring boys, they're not ring boys. They're ring crew personnel that were basically hired because you had good work ethic. But if you took your good work ethic at first and turned it around and said, no, I want to be one of the boys instead of being something like this, that could get you go. Now, if you guys ever heard about the thing with Vince, somebody asked him about me, and he said, hey, he has his parents' permission. And I worked my ass off to keep that job. You know, and I tell people this all the time when it comes to the world of professional wrestling. Going into professional wrestling and trying to be one of the boys is your worst mistake. Be you. Let the boys accept you. Don't try and be one of them. Because when you try and be one of them, it's like with any business, they think you're trying to take their spot. You'll always be an outsider. Work them so that way they accept you. And I tell a lot of people that I know this story. For all you people who always heard the horror stories about Randy Macho Man Savage, I am one of the only people that Randy Savage would allow Elizabeth to be in a car with without him being there. And because we were in a town in Texas, he comes up to me and says, I need somebody to go get Liz. Can you do it? I said, Randy, I would love to. I can't do it without a supervisor's permission. No sooner were the words out of my mouth, Pat Patterson came around the corner. He looked at Pat and said, Pat, I need somebody to go get Liz. Pat looked at me and said, what are you doing right now? I said, nothing. He goes, you're going to get Liz. Randy gave me the keys. I go to the hotel. How fast does Randy drive? Liz lost it. I would give her credit. She lost it. She started busting up laughing because she knew exactly what I meant by that. I didn't know what the speed limit was going back to the building. I don't know if I followed the speed limit that was in the car. I drove as fast as I could. But after that point, Randy Savage gave me respect. So I earned his respect off that.
And I want you to also know that I'm also one of the people that never thought anything bad of Randy Savage. You know, where a lot of people tell the horror stories of how he kept Elizabeth in a box and that. Mm-hmm. And we went as far as to put it out there. And I said it at the end of one of our videos. I don't believe that Randy Savage was hiding his wife. I believe he was protecting his wife. I believe that he was doing everything he could in his power. He understood the business he was in. He understood that what surrounded her, and he was trying to protect her. That was my stance on it. If others agreed with it, great. If they don't, whatever. That's my opinion to have. It's one of the reasons I'm glad you're here, so you can set your opinion straight. Mm-hmm. I will ask you this, though. Once you went to work for the WWF, were there other, ring crew, I'm not going to call them ring boys, who helped in setting up and breaking down the rings?
I was the youngest. Now, when I say I was the youngest person going around the country. We go into certain towns that got kids would know Mel. Okay? He didn't stop. We had guys in Poughkeepsie, New York. We had guys in Glen Falls, Manchester, New Hampshire, Portland, Maine. You know, you had some guys in Providence and stuff like that. They all knew him. Okay? They would all show up. Now, and when I say show up, they'd show up, hang out, maybe touch the ring. There was a lot of times a lot of these guys didn't want to touch the ring. They were there just to hang out, talk with Mel, and, you know, shoot the crap because they had known him for so long. And a lot of these times, it would at the end of the show, hey, good night, have a good night, see you next time we're in town. It was very, very rare after I started to have any other kids actually around because it was at this, I guess it was just now us. But before then, what happened between before 1987 when I met, I can't tell you. I know there's other people out there that can tell you things about him, positive. There's other guys that will tell you some stuff about him negative, but their accounts can't be verified because he's not around. Just like the guys who are positive. I'll say the same thing for the guys who are positive about it. But the stories that come out about him, it's like he was a pedophile, pervert, sex trafficker. Because if you go across state line, he should have been called a sex trafficker, okay, for the purposes of prostitution. And for people to come out with these claims, and none of those charges had ever been filed, it's like this. Up here in the northeast corridor of the country, a couple of years back, we had a very big thing with the Catholic Church when it comes to pedophilia in the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church would like to know how. It was 20 years from the time Mel Phillips got resigned to the time he died, where nothing else ever came out about him. Nothing else ever came out about Terry Garvin, nothing else. And Pat Patterson, from the time of 1992 to, I want to say 2019 when he passed away, nothing else ever came out about him. How did these people automatically just stop doing what they were accused of doing? Because they didn't have a job? They weren't using that against them? If these kind of things were with them, you don't just stop doing that if you're that kind of person. Because that now it becomes a sickness. It's a drug. You have to keep doing it. Did they all of a sudden just go cold turkey and say, oh, because we can't do this no more, we're done? That's the question that hasn't been answered to me. Did they just cold turkey? You know, and that's the thing. And, you know, the other thing when it comes to Mel, nobody went after Mel personally. They went after Vince McMahon because it was WrestleMania season and they thought because of the money. They didn't know. Mel was a very wealthy man before the IRS took control of him. Now, you might have heard me tell you, his severance pay was in north of $800,000.
I remember hearing about that.
He was worth over $10 million.
Well,
so
I didn't know that.
I told it to Monty afterwards in a text message, but it's one of those things to where he had a good life before the IRS got a hold of him. Tom Cole never went after him personally. In my mind, this is always a thing set up by his brother because think about it. When he first did it, it was $750,000 that he wanted to sign for. You ask any ring crew guy at that time, they were making about $30,000 a year. I could be wrong. It could be less. Okay. He said he was fired for 2. He settled for $50,000. After lawyer fees, he walked away with 30. Lee Cole got $20,000. Why? His name was never on any booking sheet. Okay. This right here, inside here, is a booking sheet. List everybody who's there for that show. Lee's was never on any booking sheet. Why did he get $20,000?
I believe that it was the money his brother gave him after the lawsuit.
No. He got $20,000 from Vince personally. Tom Cole got $30,000. He settled for $50,000, but got $30,000 because of the lawyer's fee.
So you're saying that it wasn't part of the lawsuit that he gave his brother that Vince gave him?
Vince gave Lee. It might have been $19,000. I don't want to be misquoted. So it was separate from what Tom got, from what I understand.
So Tom only got the 30 and his brother got 20 on the back end.
Yes. For what? He never was on a booking sheet. He never worked for WWF. Why would he get any money?
Well, let me ask you this. Why do you think Vince would give him that money? That does scream a little bit of a...
WrestleMania season. He wants it to go away. This happens any other time. And remember, he first went to Phil Mushnick in October. Saw Mel in Madison Garden in November. Why did he wait till February? Because he knew it was in the beginning of March. It's WrestleMania season. The quickest way to get Vince to shut up at WrestleMania season, throw money at him, shut him up. He doesn't want to disturb WrestleMania.
Well, but you also have Mushnick, who came out and was very upset because he claims that Vince had that conversation with him, that he was teary-eyed, talking about Mel, talking about being, having to let this guy go because of his quote-unquote relationship and his awkward issues with kids.
And by listening to Mel, that he told me the story, he did not get fired, or he did not, for that. He actually walked out of the WWF because he lost a position in the company, ring announcing, to somebody else.
So you're saying Mel claims that he didn't walk out because Vince was upset with him over this kid issue. He walked out because they fired him or let him go from his ring announcer gig.
Because, yes, they didn't let go of the job. He was doing Superstars or Wrestling Challenge, and they gave Wrestling Challenge or Superstars to somebody else, and he was upset about that, so he walked out. I think it was for 6 weeks, or whatever it was. They called him back and said, "You're not losing any money. Just, we're going to have her do it." Once he found out he wasn't losing any money, oh, okay, whatever. If I'm not losing money, then that's the thing. He thought he was going to lose money.
Then why would Vince say that, though? Why would Vince tell Mushnick this about Mel?
Because guess what? Just like he told Mushnick, he didn't know my name. He told Mushnick he didn't know my name. He gave Mushnick a wrong name, wrong spelling of my name. He will do, because he does what he can to protect his company. I totally agree with how, hey, I'm only going to tell you what I need to tell you. I don't have to, I'm going to tell you what I want. I'm going to tell you what I want to tell you. I don't tell you what I need to tell you. I can tell you, To him, who is Phil Mushnick? Who is he? At that point in time, who was Phil Mushnick to Vince? He was a little reporter who was trying to dig dirt on Vince. To this day, if you ever, sometimes, I'm going to say once every 2 to 3 months, he still slams Vince. Still.
Would you say the same about Meltzer? Because they corroborated the same conversation.
Well, put it this way. Meltzer's a dirt dog, always been a dirt dog. Okay? He thinks, I reached out to him. He thought I was protecting pedophiles and stuff like that. Okay? But from what I know back in the day, because he came from California, I guess he tried to be a fan who tried to get in back in those days. And if I'm right, Mel told me him and Dave had some conversations back in the days. And Dave was just, that's all he was about. He wanted to get all the insight because he wanted to do his stories.
So basically you're alluding to the fact that these guys wanted to be on the inside, and they, like you said with Tom Cole earlier, that these guys just wanted to be on the inside. They didn't understand what it was, and they didn't accept the fact that, hey, you're here, and you need to enjoy the ride for what it is.
Correct. Listen, you're there to do a job. Vince is going to, listen, now mind you, Vince is going to pay you good money to do your job. Okay? You're not going to get paid $5 like independents. You're going to get paid good money, but you got to do a job. Now, the one thing a lot of people didn't talk about is when I was working there, I saw Vince on the road once every 21 days. Okay? Do it once every 21 days. You're talking about, we'll even go up to 20 times a year he's on the road. Because back in those days, they recorded TV once every 21 days. Can anybody, now let's just say, for the sake of argument, 1990 through 1992 when I was there, he has 150 employees. Okay? Discarding wrestlers. What CEO of any company knows what every one of their 150 employees do when they're not there? When he was on the road, who's taking care of the office? Linda was taking care of the office. When he's out on the TV, yes, Vince was being Vince. When he walked into a building till the time he got done, that TV taping, Vince was the boss. Once the cameras were done, you could hang out with him, talk to him, have a beer with him, say hello to him. But he was 100% gung-ho from the time he got to a building to the time he left that building. He might have still been the same way up until a couple of years ago. And, for people to say, oh, he's always like this, it's like, if you don't know everything, like when he was on the time, say, hey, this is the first time I'm hearing this. He's on the show 20 times. He's on the road 20 days a year. And most of the time when he was on those shows, Pat Patterson was flying into buildings with him, unless it was Madison Square Garden. Usually it's Madison Square Garden, Vince would show up every month in Madison Square because, you know, it's right around the corner from his house. But other than that, when you're driving around, when you're going around the country doing show after show after show, Vince doesn't know, and this was before they recorded every show. They didn't record every show back in 1990, 91 and stuff like that. Nowadays, they record everything. They record everything so that way they can look at it, see what the guys did in the matches and stuff like that. And I defend Vince on the fact of you can't know everything about what goes on in your company at every moment. That's what you have your road agents for. Your road agents are your supervisors on the road. There was 8 of them, and we all know who the 8 were. And I'll tell you this right now, 4 of them were no BS. Chief J. Strongbow, Jim Myers, okay, Black Jack Lanza, and Tony Gurria. Those are your 4 house show guys in charge. Okay? Then they would have second guys with them. One was Rene Goulet, the other one was Dave Hebner. The other 2, Tim White was one, and I'm trying to remember I'm trying to remember the 8th one. I can't remember. But all those guys were Vince's things on the road. Those were the bosses on the road. At the end of the night, he expected a phone call from every one of them. And if anything was out of line, he knew about it. Because these guys would, especially Chief and Jim, you know, somebody did something the wrong way, he let them know about it.
And for those who don't understand who these people are, these are also former wrestlers. Chief J. Strongbow, going back to the territory days, one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, as well as former referees, and the brother of Earl Hebner, and then Tim White, also is a Hall of Famer. He was inducted in the past couple of years. So that's the validity of who he's talking about. These aren't just names he's pulling out of a hat.
Arnold Skolin, too. Arnold Skolin. So we're talking, you're talking about Hall of Famers that were very loyal to Vince, and they didn't want to see nothing done because, you know, you do anything wrong, now it affects their livelihood, their paychecks.
I do want to bring something up. They talked about Mel having a foot fetish. Enough so that they even made jokes about it. We put a video in there about Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby dropping a line talking about knock your socks off.
For next week, you won't want to miss is Hillbilly taking on the Genius. What a matchup that's going to be.
You know, if the Genius had an IQ of 3, he'd be 4 ahead of Hillbilly.
You know, as Mel Phillips would say, that match will knock your socks off.
So it seemed like this was a common thing. Did you hear about that? Did you know about that? What was your, thoughts when it came to people bringing that up?
Like I said, I'm not going to say I didn't sit here and experience it. I'm saying I never experienced the sexual deviance that people talk about. We'd be wrestling and stuff like that, and stuff would happen. Now, a lot of times it was multiple people in rooms and stuff like that, so we'd all start wrestling. Now, Mel would have a thing, yes, where he would wrestle his kids, and he'd go after their shoes, after their feet. But it never amounted to sexual criminal activity. Nobody ever claimed, hey, you're trying to fondle me. Hey, you're trying to harass me. You're trying to do this. It was all part of wrestling, all part of it. Now, his thing was he liked to grab people's feet and make them submit. Once you submitted, he let you go. But he wanted to see where your pressure point was. But it wasn't nothing to where like he'd sit there, grab your foot with one hand and then spank it with the other one.
Can you see how people could misconstrue that potentially as a little more than it was from what you're saying?
I'll put it like this. My family has vigorously asked me about this. My father was a racist. As soon as this all came out, he asked me vehemently, has this man ever been inappropriate with you? I said, Dad, he's never been inappropriate with me. And I told him the same story. Have we wrestled and he done stuff with the feet and stuff like that? Yeah. But I never saw the guy without a towel on coming out of a shower in a locker room. Okay? Because, in locker rooms and stuff like that, guys take showers together. Never saw him without a towel on. So we never took showers in the same towel. I never saw him without a towel on. So, that's where people, it's like, it's misconstrued. Tom, on the other hand, now I want to say one thing about a lot of this that goes on. Back in 1992, beginning of, other than WrestleMania, you're coming out of the LA riots of Rodney King. Tom Cole was whiter than snow. You had two homosexual guys, a homosexual, a bisexual, and a black guy, with a white kid accusing them. So racial tensions in this country weren't the best. Why wasn't Tom Cole ever questioned on his homophobia or racist views? Why wasn't Lee Cole ever questioned on his homophobia or his racist views? It was never brought up. Never been brought up.
Are you of the opinion? Are you of the opinion that they were homophobic and or racist? Is that what you're saying?
The question's out there. It's never been brought up. Absolutely.
I'll ask you then, because I don't have them here. I'll ask you directly. Is it your opinion? Is it your opinion that perhaps that both Lee and or Tom were homophobic and or racist?
Yes, and I think they used it against them because it's never been disproven. I'll put it like this: I'll say it more for Tom than for Lee, because Lee can still disprove it. But for Tom, yes, I can. Now, the one thing I want people to know right now on your show, I cannot say nothing about Tom Cole, the father or the husband, and I won't do that to his family. I can talk about Tom Cole, the ring boy, the ring crew person, the person who worked for WWF. Okay? Just so that everybody knows, that's who I'm talking about. I'm not slamming his family. I don't want to disparage his wife or his kids. Okay? This is the person who I knew, I met, worked, and lost, and left my job for. That's who we're talking about. Okay?
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be conveyed as you attacking him or his family, and they deserve peace as well. Like just much like Mel's, you said Mel's family and everybody else deserves peace. But I'm also going to ask you a question that it seemed to bother you at the time, but I want to hear about it. Hear from you directly. We know it bothered you initially when it happened, but why do you think some of the other wrestlers referred to you as Mrs. Mel Phillips?
We were always together, and I'd say we were always together. And we were road guys. We were road buddies. He would drive, I would sleep. I would drive, he would sleep. Because we never took days off. In the 2 years I worked there, basically, I was home 30 days in 2 years. Okay? I felt like I was in the military at some points. There'd be some days that he'd go, hey, we got to go do this. I'm like, God, I need a day off. I'm 18, 19. I need a day off. I need a day off. Now, the other thing is I want people to know is I did another interview with somebody who was asking about Mel's sexuality. There were an instance in Honolulu, Hawaii, and I was sleeping in a hotel room by myself at the time. And I get woken up to 3 guys walking into a hotel room with a lady of the night. Okay? Well, in Honolulu, Hawaii at the time, these were high-class ladies of the night, too. It was him and these 2 other guys were in the bathroom, taking turns. I did not bring that up before because of the simple fact, you know what? I didn't think it was anybody's business. But now I'm bringing it up because I want people to realize he wasn't a hermit. But he was married to his job. He never considered himself having time for the other thing because he wanted to work 25/8. He put it this way, Vince was the same way. Vince always used to say, if I'm sleeping, I'm not working. This guy had the same problem. If he was sleeping, he wasn't working. What can I do to make the company better? That was his motto. Mel was the kind of person, he carried around a cell phone, which back in those days, carrying around a cell phone was very real. So when anybody who needed him, especially Vince, hey, we need this, could get a hold of him. And he didn't like going to pay phones and having to make phone calls and stuff like that. And that's, so now with me and stuff like that, when it came to that Mrs. Mel Phillips thing, that went away. And it went away because of Sid Justice. And when I say that, we were in Madison Square Garden, and he was doing his warm-ups to go out to the ring, and he stopped me and said, "Hey, I want to tell you something." What? Now, this was the advice he gave me because after his squeegee incident with Brian Pillman. The more you allow these guys to say stuff and allow it to affect you, the more they're going to say it. And, you know, coming from him after what I saw him go through, now mind you, he was new to this company. He's only been in the company for 3 months now. For him to take me and say that to me, it meant a lot to me back then. I was able to understand how he said it. And having it come from one of the boys, other than coming from Mel, Terry, Pat, or any other agent, meant more than coming from those guys. And I changed to where I didn't pay attention to it, and that went away. It did go away. Okay? There are sometimes I'll run into guys like Bruce Pritchard at a restaurant, Ricky Steamboat or something like that. They'll look at me and they'll say, "How do I remember you?" I'll bring that up. Boom, they remember me right off the bat. Because a lot of guys didn't really know my name. That's what they knew me by. Sadly, they didn't know me by my name. A lot of them knew me by Jerry. As you know, with Vince and Phil Mushnick, he knew me as Jerry Mullet, Mullet. Somebody did a story, they couldn't find no Jerry Mullet who ever worked there. I found out that it was Jerry Mullet after Tom had died because I reached out to somebody who did another story about this, and that's when he first like, "What? This is who you were?" He goes, "Now I know I couldn't find you because somebody purposely misspelled your name." And that purposely misspelling of my name was Vince.
And you believe that Vince was trying to protect you?
Absolutely. Why not? I mean, maybe not trying to protect me per se, trying to say, "Hey, I don't want nobody going after this kid," because maybe he doesn't know what I could say. But for 30 years, so it worked out because, hey, I never got bothered. I got called for my deposition. I got called down for my deposition in late 1993. I did my deposition with the same, and me and Kurt, Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig went out for lunch together and stuff like that. We were listening to John Anderson in the room waiting and stuff like that. Then once that was done and over with, I went home. I've never heard from WWE again. And that's it.
Could you understand how people could take it as he didn't want people finding you because he was afraid of what you said yourself, afraid of what you would say, and that maybe you might say a story that would make him look bad?
Yeah, he could think that, but I would never say it because, in fact, that his company helped turn me around into a man. And my sisters, you know, my family will say that because the day I lost my job or the day I left my job, my whole family knew. If you notice, somebody else had to ask his brother, "Hey, what happened with the wrestling thing?" My family knew within 2 days. And just that you know, and this is one of the things I want to get portrayed to people. I worked there that amount of time. I knew where the old building was. I knew where the Titan Tower was. I knew where the warehouse was. I knew Vince and Linda's direct line into the office. I worked there 2 years. Tom Cole claimed he was there for 5. Why didn't he know Vince and Linda's direct phone number into the office? You call now, it's the same exact phone number as when I worked there. I knew they're both extensions. Okay? You could call in, and there was a lot of times late at night, Vince be the one that answered the phone. Why didn't Tom pick up the phone and call Vince himself? Because, you know, Vince wouldn't have wanted that to get out if that was true.
Which I kind of find interesting because the way they talk about it, Linda and Tom had a very close relationship. You know, it's almost like a mother-son kind of thing is the way they're trying to depict it. Are you saying that there's holes in that story and that logic?
She's protecting her company. Of course she's going to take him in. She's going to protect her company. What? The smart man says, and the smart businesswoman that she is, I'm going to do what I can to protect it so it goes away. Okay? And what it do? Goes away. Now he claims she offered him a ring announcing gig. Can Tom Cole's brother come out and tell me at the time which ring announcer he was going to be over? Howard Finkel, Tony Chimmel, Mike McGurk, Bill Dunn. Who is he going to announce over? Because I'll tell you this right now. I just named 2 Hall of Famers. One isn't there yet, but one should be. The other one is in the Hall of Fame. The other 2, Mike McGurk might get hurt calling one day. But you're talking about ring announcers who Tom Cole was going to replace as a ring announcer. You're telling, he was supposed to get a ring announcing gig. Who is he going to replace? Linda did what Linda did to protect her company. Because remember, Linda was the businesswoman. Vince was the wrestling guy.
The businesswoman that showed up to his unemployment hearing?
Probably.
Do you think that's why she was there?
Why you put it? I have no clue when it comes to the unemployment hearing. Was this in 1993? When they signed the 1-year contract after he did what he did, he comes back for 1 year. Now they don't re-sign him. Okay? You don't receive, so you don't get re-signed. How's that unemployment? Hey, we're just not picking up your contract. We're not picking it up. So how do you go file for unemployment for, hey, we're just not picking up your contract? You signed into a 1-year deal.
So why would they try to block his unemployment?
Every company does. At first, every company does that. My company would do that to me. Trust me. my company has, the company I work for has 400,000 employees. Trust me when I tell you, when I filed for unemployment, they would try and block me. Now, at the time, they probably had 250. Because your unemployment claims go up if you allow it. For every person that gets unemployment, you still got to pay more.
You don't think that was a personal attack on him at all? Just try to block that as many times as they did, and eventually her showing up to the last unemployment hearing?
Like I said, and if that's what she did, that's what she did. Do I think it was against him personally? I would have to find out how many people in that amount of time she also did it to. That's the thing. How many people did she do in that amount of time? Has that ever come out? How many other people did she block?
Well, and I get where you're coming from there, but my thought process is it's her. She is one of the heads of a major money-making company, and she's there.
She controlled my interview, or she sat me down with the lawyers on my interview for this case. I came into the office. She was the one who controlled. She sat me down, said, thank you for coming in, stuff like that. So a lot of the business part of it, I know she handled a lot of the business part. Vince didn't handle the business part until they went public.
No, and I get what you're saying, but what I'm saying is for you and that hearing, absolutely I get that because that's her company. I get that with you. But this is an unemployment hearing for Tom Cole. Because you got fired, brother. You got fired.
He tried to shaft the company, of course. I'd want to be in there too. He tried to shaft me once. How do I know he ain't trying to shaft me twice?
So you think so now that I go back to the original question, do you think this was personal with her because she didn't want him to get that after what you're alleging he tried to do?
Yes.
And that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm asking. Yeah. Before we move on, I do want to talk about something. God rest his soul. Sid passed away recently. Hell of a wrestler, hell of a man. I think most people will say positive things about him. You got a little heated though because Sid made a comment about. You said there was a bunch of kids, a bunch of boys with Mel Phillips.
Yep.
And you were very adamant about where were they, Sid? But in that same interview with Monty and the Pharoh, you brought up that the police were called to your room for a bunch of kids wrestling.
Different. I was 15 for one.
Yeah.
He was there when I was 18, 19. So it was reversed.
Okay.
So the kid in the hotel room was 15 years old. Him saying that, remember, he didn't come into the WWE until mid-1991. So I'm already 18 years old. That's why I'm saying that the timeline might have been off on Monty's thing.
Okay.
But that's why I'm saying reversed.
That's why we're here. We're to clarify stuff.
Yep.
But leading into that, again, do you not think there's something a little strange about a grown man wrestling with a bunch of 15-year-olds in a hotel room?
At the time, in that room that day, he wasn't the one wrestling. It was me and 2 other 15-year-olds were all in the room, and he's the one telling us, "Hey guys, can you quiet down?" And we're like, "Oh, we're 15-year-old, the testosterone's going, And when the cops showed up and stuff like that, and they said, "Guys, what's going on in here?" And he's like, "These guys won't settle down." And the cops just looked at us and was like, basically like, "Hey, can you calm it down?" But
in your testimony on Monty and the Pharoh, you basically said, they could look at it kind of funny. A black man with
3 white
kids.
Yep.
Because y'all were kids at the time.
Yep.
Let's be honest. You may be teenagers, you're still kids.
Yeah. And the one thing I didn't say is, I will tell you this, they took everybody's phone number down. Now, if they called our parents afterwards, I don't know, but they took everybody's phone number down.
So, and like I said, that's the whole purpose of it being here. I just want to get some clarification. And like I said, this is more of an intimate thing. This is not. I want you to understand, like as we keep going through this, I want your side. I don't want you to feel like you don't have to defend anybody. This is just Gerard's side, and we're having a conversation. And I hope you still feel comfortable.
Oh, I will do. This is easy now.
Next question I got for you is: it is no secret to anyone who has followed this story over the years that Lee Cole believes completely in what his brother said happened to him. You say there are things that have not been discussed publicly that not only cast doubt on Tom's accounts, but are also things Lee Cole has been unwilling to discuss with you. Tell us about your interactions with Lee and what these items are that you believe Lee has been either unwillingly or unable to address.
The first thing is, when we first, you guys have it on your show, on your video. When he replied, "You're welcome on my show anytime," he has still not reached out to me until today when he was doing a show and I responded to something that he said and he unblocked me today. Up until this point, he hasn't responded to me saying, "Hey, you're welcome." He said on your show, he said, "I'm welcome on his show anytime." Okay? When Monty and the Pharoh first came out, because that was live, and you heard Monty say to Gerard's credit, we said, "Hey, Lee, you can come on." And Lee said no. Okay? So up until today, from February 29th till today, we have not had a conversation. Okay? Some of the things, like I say, some of the things that I want to ask him is like, I've already brought up. Why was Tom a homophobe? Why was Tom racist? Why did you collect any kind of money at all? What kind of law degree do you have, Lee Cole? Because last I looked, defending him, the other thing I ask a lot of people, if you ever notice, why aren't a lot of these things filed in the states that they actually happened in? Why are you still going after 3 dead guys when your brother is dead himself, okay? But you don't want nobody talking about your brother. You can't have it both ways. If you're going to talk about the dead guys, expect people to talk about your dead brother. It only goes both ways. Now, you could come on and say, you know what? From this moment on, I will no longer have a conversation about my brother. I will just keep my show on topic. We don't have an issue. But some of the things that he keeps going on and on and on with, when it comes to these guys, they're never arrested, charged, or convicted. And in this country, until you've done that, you're not guilty. You're not guilty until you're arrested, tried, and convicted. Regardless of what the public eye says. No better case? OJ. No, not guilty. Not guilty in criminal court.
Civil court, yes.
Yeah, civil court, yeah. But we're talking about criminal. Why didn't Tom or Lee ever go after these guys personally? If everything happened to them with these 3 guys, because it's less of an evidence factor in civil court than criminal court to say, hey, I lost my job because of these guys. They can't use the WWF as their protector if you go after them civilly. You can't use it. Why didn't he? Why didn't both of them do it? And that's one of my biggest things when it comes to him. Don't be a hypocrite and say, "Oh, you're talking about my dead brother," and then talk about 3 dead guys. It just doesn't seem good. You cannot have it both ways. You can't play the hypocritical oath and then cry "poor me" when people attack your dead brother.
And I do want to clarify. You said back in February, whenever he blocked you, to today, which would be.
No, he blocked me about 3 months ago. He would have come on Monty and the Pharoh with me.
The interview today this discussion we're having is happening August 31st. So I want everybody to understand the timeline of what he's talking about. So in that same breath, do you think the boys who all came forward with similar allegations were lying?
There's nobody there to defend. Put it this way. You can bring up a story. If the person you're talking about is dead, how can you defend it against you?
No, I get that, but what I'm saying is the people that came forward back then.
I'll put it like this. The people who came forward on his show, this kid Sean, let's say, for instance, for Sean, he said in 1987 he went to Titan Towers. Titan Towers opened in 1990. I can give you the address of the building before Titan Towers. Summer Street, the main street's a long way in Stamford, Connecticut. Okay? You're going to tell me you went to Titan Towers 3 years beforehand. That just puts a hole in his story for me. And you can't say, oh, I misspoke. No, you didn't misspoke. A 3-year thing? It's a 3-year difference.
You're fair. That's a fair statement. But you also said earlier in this about something we talked about. You misspoke. He could have misspoke. He could have meant something else. It is a possibility.
No, because Lee Cole, he asked him, you went to Titan Towers? He goes, yeah. I went to Titan Towers. And, you went to Titan Towers 3 years before it opened?
Yeah, that's a hell of a stretch there.
Yeah. 3 months? I'll give you 3 months. I'll give you a benefit doubt in 3 months. But in 1987, they were on Summer Street in Stamford, Connecticut. 1055 Summer Street to be exact.
What do you know of that? What do you know of that?
I don't. I know we can't verify it because it's behind a paywall.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, what we do know is we can't verify it because it's behind a paywall.
Well, if you pick up 1055 Summer Street, it'll be a white board.
What I'm saying is we can't go back to the interview because...
Oh, that's the interview where there was supposed to be a second part, and the second part's never come out.
Which I find frustrating, and I'll be blunt. And I'm not speaking for both of us. I'll speak my personal opinion on it. I find it very frustrating, and I talked about you that way. I want everybody to understand that there's no faking here. This is either two men having a conversation. Again, my wife is here. I find it very fugazi and very flimsy that a man would sit here and say he's defending his brother and he wants his brother's story told, yet he has very important information about said case hidden behind a paywall. That bothers me. And I want it to be very clear, and we've always made it very clear. I told you this before we started recording, and I'll say it again plainly for everybody. We have never made a dime off a victim. The Vince McMahon video that we're more popularly known than this channel, and the Mel Phillips video, as far as the Ring Boy scandal video, has made multiple views. Not a dime. And the idea that this man's brother is profiting off of his brother does bother me quite a bit. I'm glad you're here. And I want that to also add to your character. You're here. It's not your brother you're defending. It's three men who are considered to be monsters, but you're here defending them. This man's brother is allegedly one of the victims, and yet he would not give you time of day, and he's holding information behind a paywall. That bothers me.
I'll put you like this, okay? When you come into the wrestling world, okay, there's a thing that if you don't know the business, don't come into the business. Okay? Don't talk bad about the business that you now are profiting off of. I have by putting myself out here like this, I have realized the fact of I could be pissing some people off in the business. Okay? But on the other hand, I know some of these guys they could be looking at me and say, on the other hand, like, what the frick took him so long to speak up? This guy's been being run through these guys have been running through the ringer. The one guy who could have spoke up all these years ago finally decided to speak up. Lee, I don't need this. I need to get it out because I was just sick and tired of hearing the lies about friends and people who I respected. Now, some people say, could you respect them? A working relationship and a personal relationship, two totally different things. I respected them in a working relationship, Pat and Terry. Up until the time everybody got forced to resign, I did not know Terry Garvin in a personal way. Pat Patterson, I did not know in a personal way. After this, I actually got invited to Pat Patterson's house. When me and Mel went there, I don't know if I can ever go into a house more gorgeous than this guy's. Pat Patterson's house is absolutely gorgeous. Louis was there at the time, so just so you guys know, if you guys don't know, Louis was his husband, boyfriend, whatever you want to call him that day. Okay, Terry Garvin. I got invited to his house in Shelton, Connecticut. Okay. The other thing I would ask about Tom Cole: what color was Terry Garvin's house? I know what color it was. I'm not going to tell you because then it gives the answer away. I had already known his wife and his kids from shows in Boston Garden and previous shows that we had run. Okay. His daughter and his son have been put through 30 years of hell because all people do is ever talk about his father in a monster way. That's not fair to them. They had nothing to do with it. Their father should not have been put in that kind of position to where his kids have to hear that about him, even after death. This guy died of cancer. He didn't take his own life. He died of cancer. Pat Patterson didn't take his own life. He died, if I'm right, of cancer also. Mel Phillips, nobody knows how he died. But none of them, as far as I know, took their own lives. So let's not portray these guys in death as the cowards. Let these guys just, you know what? They served the ultimate price. They're dead. Let them be dead. There's nothing more we can say about them. They're dead. It wasn't always hunky-dory with me and Mel. Why is it, Lee Cole, that after your brother's death, you decided to continue his crusade, when he didn't do it himself, when he was still alive and these guys were dead? There'd be days I would see him cry for hours and hours and hours. I have a thing to where if you man up to me, I'm good with that. Man up. I made a promise never to talk about it while he was alive. After 32 years, other than this kid, Sean, let's just say less than 5 kids have come out. 5 in 32 years. He went, because how many times have you heard Lee Cole say, if I had been in that room, if I had been in that room, if I had been in that room, if I had been... The day before I was supposed to go into the grand jury, before I even started my deposition, he had already admitted he'd lied.